Honorable guests, distinguished auto users, as well as the miners, who is our upstream friends, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. So today, I'm going to start talking about, for the auto industry, what about the three different trends. So the key part of my presentation will be about for the upstreams and downstreams. How can we integrate the users with the raw materials to connect the dots of the upstreams and downstreams of our supply chain? So I guess, first of all, auto sector is very important. It's a very important user sector for PGM, precious metals. So not only it's about using the raw materials, but at the same time, it's about greenness, technology-oriented, and circular economy collaboration as well. So it will be applied in all three different attributes as well. Yesterday, we had a closed-the-door session. We talked about exhaust treatment. So think about like the PGM versus like hydrogen, and versus gold, as well as the electronics connector. We are using a lot of PGM as well, and because of the low carbon commitment. So for the recycling of the used catalyst for exhaust gas, like a catalyst, is also very important. The second one is about the production and the sales of autos. So think about like 2025, last year, it's breaking a new record. So you'll find that it's about 99 million units, breaking historical record. So I think compared with the historical record in 2017, so which is about 92 million, so it's up by 27%, and China market is contributing 34.9%. And also, this is still growing in the first 4 months. So I guess that the sales volume for China is 10 million. To be exact, is about 9.58 million units as well. So in terms of powertrain structure, BEV as well as the hybrid vehicle and PHEV, in the year to 2026. So I guess that is almost half, like 50%. So which means that the ICE is accounting for half of the market. So I guess that the single months, the largest, for example, penetration is 27%. So I guess the next trend is about integration. There are 4 different trends for the NEV, but now I think we should focus on the supply chain. So there are 3 different trends: integration, intelligentization, greenization are the first 2 trends, but integration is another trend as well. Because for auto industry, so for energy storage, green power, hydrogen, as well as the charging, that's the first integration. The second integration is about the road infrastructure, intelligent IOV and cloud platform, as well as the scheduling system for transportation. So it's about integration of the road, vehicle, V2X, and cloud. At the same time, the raw materials on the upstream is also integrated with like the downstreams as well. So lithium battery, and also the volatility of price of like the aluminum. So actually, people are thinking about using some magnesium to substitute for the aluminum. So I guess that the vehicle is integrated more with raw materials usages as well. So think about a lot of Chinese companies are trying to think about how can they provide the first class and also first of its kind new materials. Another integration is intelligence integrated with the vehicles as well, like AI and the software platform and the data closed loop, as well as smart manufacturing. So those are the different directions highly integrated with our auto industry. Another integration is about China versus a global industry. So our product, technology standards, and supply chain are integrated with the rest of the world. So the future competition is not about competition amongst the different auto sector companies, but also is an ecosystem competition. Just like memory storage chips, so auto sector needs to work together with the mega AI sector so that we can do it better together. So I guess that opportunities for PGM, what's the relevance of PGM in auto? So from the emissions control all the way to the low carbon and energy efficiency, etc. It has systematic role as well. Going forward, it's not about the resources like the metallurgy, but also is a recovery capability as well as the material system collaboration, competition as well. So now I would like to show you what about the new requirement for PGM from auto sector. So highly safety, reliable, long lifespan, So I guess that the PGM has find its way into all the system. So the temperature reliability, anti-aging, and corrosion resistance. So there is a long-term requirement for that, and also quality, consistency, the batch consistency at the same time. So the high temperature stability as well. That's very important. So the auto grade verification is also very important. And for PGM, there are some requirements for that as well. So ESG, recycling, green low carbon, circular economy, recycling, etc. There are the new requirements for our PGM. So I guess that our suggestion for you is that, so actually if you are doing it as a raw material, you should do better. So you're a partner for the industry players to provide the reliability and the stability. So instead of just supplying the materials, you can come to the front of the stage by co-develop the raw materials with us. So you can help us to optimize the metallurgical formula in the very beginning. So at the same time, from providing a qualified material supply, you can transmission yourself towards providing the service capability for meeting all the requirements for auto grade requirement for PGM. Last but not least, from the primary supplier, you should play a larger role throughout the full life cycle of the auto, from the production, sales, usage, and recycling. So low carbon and green circularity should be a part of your responsibility as well. Last but not least, so we are of the hope that we want to work together with the upstreams and downstreams of our material supply chain. So let's try to look at building the ecosystem. So we need to collaborate with each other for technology. So I guess that because of the change of the traditional landscape, and there are newly emerging need and demand as well. So I hope that we can integrate with each other's technology. The second one is that so in the past it's about pricing, but now going forward is about system as well. So the pricing of the auto life cycle in the past, so the iteration cycle and the pace time is about 3 years, but now the iteration cycle is about 1 year. So from the pricing perspective, the pricing is volatile. So if the price is changing a lot, it's hugely challenging for tier 1 suppliers. So I hope that from PGM perspective, so we should do some balancing act between the short-term price volatility versus long-term system stability. And third thing, we really want to bridge you amongst each other is that enhancing transparency for the collaborative, synergistic collaboration across all the industry players to do joint innovation for raw materials and production. We hope that you are not just supplying the materials. You can work with the auto industry OEMs so they can share data to do the joint research of technology, from technology synergy to green synergy to circular synergy as well. So I guess that relevance of PGM in auto, and also the auto sector also needs to have a high value and innovative solution from the PGM sustainably. So let's do the collaborative innovation together instead of just supply and demand. Thank you. Thank you, Secretary General Li, for giving us a comprehensive picture about intelligentization, greenization, and integration, the 3 trends for auto sector. So let's welcome our expert focusing on the demand forecast for the Asia-Pacific market. So let's welcome Zeng, General Manager of Globaldata Information Service, Limited, Shanghai. So welcome, Zeng.
Well, firstly, I would like to say thanks to the organizer for the invitation. Just now, Mr. Li gave us an abstract overview talking about the interaction between the auto industry and the PGM industry. So for me, as an observer of the auto industry, I'd like to talk about something that we have observed, how we see the industry as a whole, and also I would like to zoom in on some micro lenses, in particular after the Beijing Auto Show 2 months ago, what has happened since that auto show. A few words about Globaldata. We cover 21 industries based in London. As for our auto sector coverage desk, we cover auto production and research in more than 130 countries and regions, collecting data and doing analysis. So back to the Beijing Auto Show, one key observation is about cars being intelligent, being smart. This is a trend, a mega trend for the auto industry, pushing for a revolutionary transformation of the industry. So At the Beijing Auto Show, during the Beijing Auto Show, the first observation of mine is that BYD occupied the largest area of the exhibition as a single auto company. However, if you tour the entire exhibition area, you will find that Huawei, under Huawei, it has a couple of sub-brands. So all of its sub-brands taken together had more exhibition areas than BYD. However, its exhibition areas are more scattered across the various exhibition halls and venues. So such scattering or such separation reflects the status of Huawei. Huawei doesn't want it to be seen by the industry as a super player or a mega player. Rather, it tries to have a balanced relationship with all the other OEMs. However, if you look at the Beijing Auto Show, BYD and Huawei, when it comes to the NEV development, represent two different technology tracks, one focusing on fast driving, and the second being Huawei focusing on smart driving. So for Huawei, it focuses on developing all kinds of smart devices, including its long-range 896 lines of LiDAR and NOA and etc. BYD is not as strong as Huawei when it comes to smart devices development. However, it's not it's not lagging behind fast charging. Its fast charging track represents a very strong mode. 5 to 9 minutes is the time taken for BYD cars to get recharged, which helps BYD build a moat that is insurmountable by any of its competitors in this very specific niche. Back to smart driving, back to the niche area of smart driving itself. So at the very center is the software. Smart driving software is at the very center, and the OEMs, they collaborate with those providing such software, creating an ecosystem. Huawei, standing at the very core, is the biggest software developer, and surrounding Huawei include mostly Chinese local OEVs, such as GAC, Cherry, BAIC, and SAE, etc. But of course, Huawei has collaboration with some JVs, such as Audi, and also has international players. For Momenta, on the right-hand side, mostly collaborating with international players, and on the left-hand side, you find names such as Horizon and ZYT, which is a smart driving functional unit under DJI, the drone manufacturer. They also collaborate with OEMs, and the white OEMs. The OEMs colored in white, mostly they focus on in-house development instead of seeking external collaboration. But anyways, Wuling or OEMs either develop themselves or collaborate with other software provider for smart driving collaboration. This is basically one major trend we are observing in the industry. However, for Huawei, it's rather special because it spreads itself across the various, or it divides itself into different functional units. Why? Because when it comes to the conventional idea of Tier 1 or Tier 2, Huawei finds no place either as a Tier 1 player or a Tier 2 player. Rather, Huawei plays a role more earlier. In other words, it develops the software solutions on one hand, and also it's involved in the marketing and post-sale service of OEMs, creating a closed loop. That's why I call Huawei's model the Tier 0 model, something that has disrupted the traditional Tier 1 collaboration model. That's why during this Beijing Auto Show, you find Huawei tended to keep a low profile. This showed you the overall universe of Huawei. Huawei actually is involved in more than 30, 40 models developments and collaborating with a lot of OEMs. Under Huawei, it has a vehicle business unit by the name Yingwang. Under such business unit, it has 3 major functional units, including the Harmony Smart Driving as well as Qiankun and HI Huawei Inside. 3 different technology pathways that collaborate while competing against against each other. Actually, in between the first two, Harmony and Qiankun, such competition already presented itself starting from this year. So will this architecture continue? This is something that we still have to wait and see, because the architecture itself is rather complicated and with the competition and cooperation. However, the marginal benefit to Huawei keeps declining as the model becomes more mature. That's why you're seeing Wenjie, which is one of the earlier models developed between Huawei and other OEMs, still has 70% of the overall share. So that's basically the overall see. And in Q1 2026, intelligent driving chip, the chip itself, the penetration is already approaching 25%, actually already surpassed 25%, which means that out of every 4 vehicles, 1 already has L2 and beyond smart driving capabilities. And also in the industry, XP and NIO, as well as Li Auto, Tesla, Xiaomi, they, as industry disruptor, has about 100% of penetration. Geely and and Chang'an, Leapmotor, the more traditional player, they have 20 to 40% of the penetration. As for the international brands, as well as JVs, BMW, Audi, and Ford, less than 20%, which means that they lag far behind in the niche area of intelligent driving. And the second major trend from the Beijing Auto Show is the megawatt charging, fast charging, brought about by BYD. According to some data that we have collected, starting from 2023, 800V and above, less than 2%, 3%, only in between 1% to 2% in the market, or 800V and plus has less than had only 1 to 2% of the market share back in 2023. However, this year already surpassing 20%. Actually, during this year's Beijing Auto Show, models sold at or above the price of 150,000. All of them are equipped with 800V plus supercharging, which means a dramatic change. BYD leads far ahead of Huawei when it comes to fast charging. Huawei did launch their ultra-fast charging back in 2022, 2 to 3 years earlier than BYD's fast charging. However, when it comes to marketing and business development overall, still there is a huge gap. For BYD, because the underlying tech stack is integrated, which means that vehicle and charging, they share the same tech stack. However, for Huawei, its charging protocol is not fully integrated with the charging or with the vehicle charging port of the OEMs. There is not so deep integration, so that's a problem Huawei is facing. And CATL, the battery manufacturer from China, they are working on battery swapping, which represent a new technology pathway. For mega fast charging station, BYD has more than 100 across China, and they already signed deals with SINOTECH charging station, SINOTECH petrol gas refueling station, which means that they will see their charging stations installed in more than 30,000 refueling and gas refueling stations owned by CNPC, which means that BYD will see their fast charging penetration increase really fast. So penetration, back to the map once again, 100% for NIO, XP, Xiaomi, and less than 20% for most international brands. So already, electrification in China already reached 65%. However, for most international players, their electrification penetration is only single digit. That's why we're seeing such a dramatic gap. So, two major observations we have collected from the Beijing Auto Show that is currently defining the auto industry. If you have any further questions, feel free to reach out to me. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Zeng, for giving us such detailed statistics and giving us your observation and analysis of the auto industry. Next up, we have Mr. Li Yun, Vice Chair of SINOTECH. To deliver his presentation, Mr. Li has devoted many years to the research, development, and commercialization of auto-catalysts and has led a number of state-level research programs. The floor is yours, Mr. Li. Honorable leaders, experts, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Happy. And also, I would like to say thanks to the organizing committee for giving me this opportunity to share my ideas and to exchange opinions with you. As we all know, development is the first priority for anyone. So as one of the key application area of PGM, auto-catalyst sector is also facing the pressure to seek growth. Without growth, we always find ourselves faced by multiple challenges, and growth is the only way to overcome all the challenges. That's why I have chosen a second topic, navigating cycles with resilient growth. I'll cover 5 parts in my presentation. For the first part, I would like to cover the rise of China domestic innovation, which is also reflective of SINOTECH's R&D, because we have been in this industry for 20 years. In 2005, we were established, and 2021, we got listed on China's New Tech Board, and also we are a hidden champion in the manufacturing sector. We focus on tech innovation as well as commercialization of our R&D results so that we control our core technologies and improve our competitiveness at the same time. We have 1 headquarters and we have 4 production bases across China. Specifically, we will align ourselves with China's overall strategy of bringing down the emissions, bringing down carbon, and improve the recycling of carbon. We have a couple of growth curves. The first growth curve, defining our growth, is environmentally friendly catalyst, including auto catalyst, as well as industrial VOC catalyst, which is another main application area of PGM. And the second thing is our energy storage and sodium-ion battery, which is our second growth curve, also an area where China has advantages. And third growth curve, or third growth area for us, is composite material solutions. We already have a production line of auto catalyst that is very much ahead of our industry, and also we already connect with our main clients, sharing data in real time. In other words, the quality consistency control, quality control, and the quality QMS has already been highly recognized by our clients. Our natural gas engine catalyst, we already have 100% coverage of all China domestic OEMs, and our diesel catalyst also we enter into the mainstream OEMs, and the same can be said of gasoline. As for industrial VOC catalyst that share the same technology pathway already used in CNPC and China Petrol, already replacing international competitors. And when it comes to energy storage, we have 2 sets of energy storage capability already in commercial stage, and energy storage products already sold internationally.
Secondly, I'm going to talk about the challenges for our industry, which is a cost pressure for everyone, especially given the volatility of the precious metal market. Okay, we're mindful of the fact that there is a high concentration of the PGM resources, but their usage is spread out all over the world. So let's try to look at the supply chain. So I guess given the volatility of the PGM industry, so given the high concentration of this supply, well, the distribution nature of the user end, this is a challenge by its very nature. Mindful of the fact that around the Chinese New Year 2026, so the platinum, palladium, as well as rhodium, the pricing is breaking new historical records. So I guess that for the auto sector, for the whole industry, I guess this is a major thing. And third one is about the new energy revolution, especially for the new energy vehicle, the NEV, especially for the exhaust like catalyst for auto sector. What does that mean for the PGM loading? So NEV doesn't mean that it's about a clear substitution of the PGM with something else. It's about the market reshaping of landscape. It's a technology iteration. It's about the policy update as well. So for every process, everything we can expect. So there are challenges as well as opportunities as well. Well, first of all, let me show you. So first of all, I think there are the hedging offset effect. What I mean is that so the BEV doesn't need any catalyst, but if you look at the NEV, so we'll find that we are still yet to enhance the penetration rate of the NEV. But I guess that for China market, so I guess that PHEV and other hybrid vehicle is also having a higher requirement for a higher specification of the catalyst. They still need catalyst, right? So I guess that like the PHEV and hybrid EV actually is going to use a lot of specialized catalytic solutions. This will be opportunities for us as well. The next one is that from our company perspective, so I guess that this is related to PGM. So the hydrogen catalyst technology also need to use PGM. For a certain while, people in China have always been focusing on hydrogen. Recently, based on the insider information from our industry, so hydrogen is already put high on the government national agenda. So I guess that a fuel cell energy vehicle will be a great opportunity for PGMs. Fourthly, it's about how can we make some efforts to build a resilient future. So can we spend different cycles as well to achieve the sustainable development? From our perspective, I think we are under double pressure because over the longer run, the pressure is that so as the penetration rate for BEV is going to increase, when the pressure because at the face value, it seems that the PGM loading is going to decline. And the second short-term pain is that the volatility of the price as well. So I guess that so we are under double pressure. So the long-term versus the short-term. So we are caught up in the quagmire or the dilemma. But what are we going to do? First of all, we're going to do the recycling of precious metal as well. So at the same time, we should be thinking about iterating the new technology. At the same time, find some new application scenarios for PGMs as well. But more importantly, from our perspective, I guess that we need to find some collaboration mechanisms throughout the industry supply chain. So together we can develop some global landscape characterized by the like ecosystem-oriented sustainable development. Last but not least, SINOTECH stands ready to work with everyone to make sure that together we can make a difference for technology innovation as well as reshaping the supply chain so that by using an efficient and green solution, we can span different cyclicality of the industry. So together we can embrace the sustainable auto catalyst industry future. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Li Yun, for talking about challenges of auto catalysts, but also the opportunities for the future as well. So now let's go for the panel discussion session. Let's welcome the moderator. So Jason Jiang, head of the China Research World Platinum Investment Council. Jason, at the same time, can we have the honor to bring back to the stage all the speakers who have finished their presentation? So we have all the speakers prior to that as well as Lawrence Li, who is head of the Asia Pacific for Umicore Auto Catalyst, a Chinese company, Corporation Limited. Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Jason Jiang. I'm head of the China Research for WPIC. So today, I feel very pleased to share the stage with all the four panelists so that we can have this panel discussion. Following the keynote presented by Li Shunhu and Zeng, as well as Li Yun, you are familiar with all three speakers, but we have one more speaker joining us for the panel, so which Lawrence Li, representing Umicore. Would you like to say a few words about yourself? Hello, everyone. My name is Li Wenjie. Lawrence Li. Lawrence is my English name. So my company is Umicore. I've been working for Umicore for 22 years. Well, when I first started, I used to work for the factory and then all the way to general manager of the factory and the business development director at the same time, the managing director of Umicore Suzhou company at the same time, Umicore, the auto catalyst China region vice president. So by now, my current capacity is the auto catalyst business unit for Umicore, covering all the Asia Pacific areas. We have presence in China, Japan, Korea, and India, as well as Thailand. We have presence in 5 different countries. Thank you, Lawrence. So I guess this is our panel discussion session. I'm going to ask each of the panelists one question. Prior to that, I'm going to talk about the background of the question before I can ask you the question, ask you the why. Because looking across the audience, we have all the experts coming from the PGM industry. So in order for everyone to better understand where you're going to share, so I would like to ask Mr. Li Shunhu. So you mentioned that the ICE is already achieving the 50% of the waistline. So actually in the past, people only have the restrictions for emissions, but now they are restricting the usage of the road rate. But there's a talking about like the parity of ICE versus new energy vehicle. But also think about like the procurement tax incentive is phased out. So I guess that there are 2 opposing different forces. So think about there is one force we're going to phase out the ICE. Well, the other force is going to reserve room for development for the ICE. But then how do you interpret this multiple factors happening at the same time? So how can you address this policy, seemingly policy like contradictions? Because one is talking about parity between ICE versus an EV. The other one is talking about the phasing out the procurement tax, and how do you balance against the 2? Okay, this is a wonderful question, Jason. So the industry is calling for the parity between or giving equal treatment for ICE versus NEV. That's the given because this is the common opinion of the industry players. But for the last 15 years, so I guess that in the past, the policy is guiding everyone towards the transition towards NEV, but now it's the market who want to do it. So you mentioned that seemingly there are 2 like composition forces or contradiction forces, but you mentioned one thing. So in the past, it restricted per vehicle emission, but now they are going to restrict the ICE cars road usage rate, right? So this is part of the urban administration and governance. Second thing is about giving equal treatment to the ICE versus the NEV. So I guess that early of this week, so there is about the phase out of the tax or tax incentives is going to be phased out. So I guess that is a policy direction. But if you ask me, how do I reconcile those 2 opposing forces? On the one hand, there is a supposedly equal treatment for ICE versus NEV. It's not about the restriction. It's about making sure that the government is making some serious efforts to enhance the product competitiveness of NEV so that it could be put on the same equal footing to compete with ICE. So that's about the parity or equal treatment for ICE and NEV. So I guess for the powertrain structure and for car models, I think it's going to have 1,000 flowers blossoming at the same time. You're going to develop different models like hydrogen fuel cell vehicles or like the battery swap and also the range extension as well as the hybrid vehicle, etc. So there will be a diversification of the different car models as well. So, but it's also energy structure thing. It's about the weather thing. It's about the user scenario difference as well. So you have to work with multiple legs instead of fixating on putting all the eggs in one basket as well. It depends on the different requirement from the ecosystem, and then companies will adapt as such. Thank you very much, Shunhu. So you mentioned that we have to establish an ecosystem. The company should adapt based on the market demand. Can I follow up with a question for you? We understand that so the phase out of the tax credits for the vehicles, etc. For the new energy vehicle, especially for the plug-in hybrid as well as the range extended energy vehicle, do you think that they are going to use more PGM or forget about the PGM? They are going to use a BV or something. What do you think? Well, my personal take is that for the BEV, it's still in the upward cycle for growth still. That's a given. Now, if you look at technology for power battery, I could point by the speakers, so the flash charging for BYD, solid-state battery, long-term trend, etc. So I guess that from the convenience level perspective and from the infrastructure perspective, I guess that BEV still has some room for development. And for the hybrid plug-in as well as the ICE, so I guess that maybe they are going to use less and less PGM loadings. Okay, thank you. I agree with you because I guess that this is going to support the PGM reading or interpretation. Thank you, Lawrence. I'm going to ask you the questions in the sequence of where you are seated. So I guess that you are the eyewitness for the upgrading of the American emissions standards and also for China's emission standards. My question for you is that there's a dual track mechanism for China's emissions. So think about in the TEDA farm in Tianjin, dual track means that the single vehicle emissions restriction plus the corporate average fleet level emissions. Where is China standing by international standard? Do you think we are more aggressive? Do you think we are not that aggressive? We are only practical. Second one is that with the China-SAE coming on the horizon, how will that affect the Umicore? So do you think that you are going to focus more resources on China with China-SAE? Okay, this is a very good question. Well, from the global car exhaust emissions control regulation perspective, so European is about controlling every vehicle very stringently, and the US is about controlling the whole fleet of vehicles. And for the dual track system for China-SAE, China is going to borrow the merits of the US and the Europe system, which not only keep an eye on the single individual vehicle, but also trying to have some restriction on the fleet level emissions. So I guess this is more attuned for China's transmission or transition towards the NEV. And the second one is that, so think about the dual track system. So I guess that for China-SAE, it has it all. So this is not only about controlling the pollutants, but also the GHG emissions as well. So at the same time, when they are trying to cap the level of the car exhaust pollutants, at the same time, for the carbon dioxide emissions, they are also putting restriction on that as well. If you put China in the global stage, so by global standards, so I guess China is very special and China is advanced by international standard. So, but think about in terms of the single vehicle control, we are not that aggressive, but we are more comprehensive. The width as well as the depth of our regulatory framework is more practical for China. Okay, thank you, Lawrence, as well. So to follow up with your question, so I guess you mentioned that China is getting the beauty of both the U.S. and Europe system. So the dual track system is going to become more stringent than either the U.S. and Europe. Because you are in the car industry for so many years, so single vehicle as well as the bin emission intensity, if you factor all those factors, what do you think about G7? China-SAE. How much PGM loading do you think that is going to be used by the single vehicle emission for China-SAE? Okay, auto catalyst is a very important user market for PGM, right? Normally speaking, well, if you look at the need for staying compliant with regulations, so I guess that you have to use more PGM loading in order to stay compliant with the new standards in China. But if you look at the technology improvement of the auto catalyst industry, so they are getting better and better for technology. So it's not just about a quantifiable number growth for the volume growth, it's about technology growth. So, well, I have to use the same or have to use that much. So I'm going to enhance its efficiency for utilization. I'm going to use it better for better outcome. So that's why the auto catalyst guys are investing in R&D. So think about so fast light off, low temperature start off, and the OSC, etc. At the same time, so the dispersion and also the user efficiency of the PGM, they are going to improve as well. So I guess that by innovating the catalyst structure as well as innovating on the materials, they can make some technology breakthrough together with the usage of some PGM loading. They can stay compliant with the China-SAE. So actually, Li Yun, can I have a follow-up question for you? So we understand for SINOTECH, so you have already filed for the patent for carrier or substrate-oriented catalytic solutions as well, for China-SAE as well. So you have the new patent. So how do you retrofit improve the catalyst solution? The first one is that improve the coating and formula, and the second one is that at OSV, so you find that the oxygen intake could be better, and so that you can enhance the user efficiency of the PGM. So from the SINOTECH perspective, in the market consideration, what are your technical choice? Because they have different meanings for PGMs.
Thank you. Well, what I would like to say is two pathways. I don't think they conflict with each other or they are irrelevant to each other. It's not like either or, but still it's dependent on the specific models and its emission parameters. As for which pathway shall be the main one that we choose and which one serves as secondary. So now for REEV, range extended, or for PHEV, because the operating conditions of both types are rather stable. For this kind of vehicles, mostly we will work on coating design for optimization in that area. As for the oxygen capacity, mostly applied to the traditional ICE cars, in particular with China-SAE becoming implemented someday, and in particular with more pollutants incorporated into the monitoring. So it requires the collaboration of the two pathways to meet China-SAE requirements. A follow-up question. So we talk about the bin value as you are aware yourself from China 5 to China 6. In particular, China 6 represents significant stringent requirement compared with China 5, as we are expecting China 7 a more stringent one. Therefore, you'd expect a spike of loading before you get savings on that. However, bin, it's China intensifies bin requirements by stages. So when China 7, when bin is staged up, well, it means PGM loading will gradually become stabilized. Well, about this question, as you are all aware that the entire auto catalyst industry from China 4 to China 5 to China 6, throughout the process, two pathways. One pathway was catalyst design or formula design, and the second pathway is the one that truly underpins the improvement of the stability materials technology. Actually, we worked on both pathways to meet any requirements that represent more stringent requirement from China 4, China 5, China 6. As for PGM loading, while it increase or decrease, increase represent the most straightforward solution or answer given China 7. However, there is a practical risk, a risk that we do feel for ourselves. Because if you're thrifting PGM loading, say getting it 20% less, however, when someday you find that the PGM price goes up by 30 to 40%, the cost control goal still fails to reach because of the costs overrides whatever thrifting you manage to achieve. That's one practical risk you have to consider. And second practical consideration is that when it comes to the so-called new powertrain, while we try to meet China 7 requirements, the practical catalyst technologies as well as material technology optimization both are needed to contribute to costs going down, while in the meantime avoiding any of the price going up overriding whatever effort we made from the thrifting side. So it requires coordinated efforts, and also it requires industry collaboration to meet China 7 standard while also getting the costs down again, we have to work together. Just like when China-SAE was first implemented, overall cost did go up for a while. However, with collective efforts, the overall cost was brought down after a while. I expect the same curve or the same trends for China-7. Thank you very much. That actually brings up another issue, an issue of concern to most international participants, because Chinese or a lot of industries, technologies change so fast. When answering questions, things change, say, in 3 months. It's not that we cannot give you a yes or no answer. It's just that technologies change so fast. BYD, fast charging, 9 minutes starting point, going down to 7 minutes. So such change happened very fast. A question regarding BEV. Do you see BEV penetration in China to go up in the next 5 years? And second question is 2028, 2030, if, say, BEV will embrace a second major growth, if solid-state battery becomes more commercially available. Regarding solid-state battery, actually it's not a pure tech question. We talk with industry players, production-wise, be it, say, the ternary lithium or other types of solid-state, because of the compatibility issue. The compatibility is rather low. Therefore, if, say, switching their existing production equipment to producing pure solid-state battery, all the existing or all the capex that they have already invested becomes nothing on the book. That's the practical issue facing the entire industry. It's not a pure tech question. It's because the existing production lines already has a lot of capex investment already sunk in such production lines. The same can be said in Japan and in other areas and countries. Therefore, when it comes to solid-state battery, simply switching represents a tremendous cost, because all the sunk cost that you incur as your loss must be added to the cost calculation of the solid-state battery production line, something unbearable to solid-state battery manufacturer. Therefore, when I talk with the president of XP, his answer is that mostly solid-state batteries will first be applied to robots that has less requirement in a lot of areas, and they move in a limited space before talking about such batteries installed on vehicles. And back to BEV, Chinese government stance is not to destroy ICE cars. Our goal is to go for electrification and green, because back in 2000, in early 2000, China was back there had a huge storm, and all the electrical systems were to some extent affected. Therefore, electrical vehicles represent direction, but ICE cars must be there as the last resort guarantee. Therefore, I think that from the Chinese government stance is always coexistence of various types of vehicles instead of one overriding the other. That's why last year you see state government issued policies encouraging the optimization and upgrading of ICE cars, say incorporating PHEV or plug-in, representing some strategies to optimize or upgrade ICE cars instead of destroying one to leave room for the other. China didn't say we must ban ICE cars, say, by 2035, just like what you heard from other countries. The overall goal is to have the coexistence of different models. So you talk about solid-state batteries, well, mean higher costs for vehicles. Have you did any comparison last year, this year, of solid-state battery itself? We don't see any commercial application of solid-state batteries up to now, even for BYD, only in pilot cases. So they are doing some pilot installation of such batteries on vehicles. Therefore, it's impossible for us to calculate any of the costs, because if you have to do the cost calculation, you have to firstly take into consideration all the existing production equipment that will go to waste if such switching becomes a reality. reality, the pain is really high. It's really painful for the switch. Happy to hear it's not to destroy ICE cars, otherwise PGM market will be in real trouble. In the interest of time, a last question to Mr. Li, Deputy Secretary General Mr. Li, because you mentioned that China in the future, the competition will not just be competition amongst the OEMs, rather will be competition amongst the different ecosystems. So question is, when China-SAE becomes a reality, will companies compete instead of on cost or on price, but rather on value? Say, those with a stronger tech prowess, whilst they find themselves enjoying better days, whereas those less technologically sophisticated, well, they find themselves lagging behind. To answer the question, indeed, when it comes to the auto industry as a whole, for consumers and for the markets, we always reward those having presence along the whole supply chain, along the whole ecosystem, especially those with innovation capabilities. As for single model, for example, a OEM, they might have one model beating all the other models, but that is management of vehicles on their end. However, it requires innovation of them and also their supply chain. But at the end of the day, consumers and the market always reward those with innovative capabilities, and those who are less strong on tech side will find themselves in problems because of the fierce market competition. Or say if you do innovate on some single model, it's really hard because again, vehicles in China, it changes so fast. Iteration happens so fast. Usually one cycle lasts only a year. For example, the models that you saw last year, when you compare the models launched last year and models launched this year, you will find dramatically different innovative points. So that's another testament to how fierce the competition, how brutal it is. A single product, a single model cannot enjoy long-lasting leading position. That's the final statement. What does that mean? Well, because international guests always say that Chinese companies, they compete so fiercely against each other. Actually, for international guests, you may find it hard to understand that the Chinese OEMs, their life is much harder than the international players, not because of the electrification, not simply because of China-SAE. So I do have this feeling that a lot of OEMs, their overall production will change even faster to cater to the fast-changing market needs. Answer is yes. I visited most of the OEMs in the first half of this year. I found that indeed the case. At 10 a.m., everybody was ready for work. And when we had meetings with them, usually the meetings are scheduled starting from 9 or 10. Everybody was ready to work. And also that will be reflected in the more technical parameters that you see coming out of vehicles launched from China in the future. Thank you. And also, I would like to say something. I hope that Trevor and Wei Bing, you can agree with me, because WPIC, we do field visits and collect real data. That's when you see our report show some changes. It's only normal. It's simply because the Chinese market changes so fast. So does your opinion and your data or your report. Last question to Lawrence. China-SAE, again, China-SAE and PGM price represent cost pressure. Umicore, as a foreign company, international company, how do you balance cost control on one hand and tech upgrading mandatory requirements for tech upgrading? How do you balance the two? That's the first part of the question. And second question, PTPD substitution. For what reason? If such substitution does happen in Autocat, for what reason? To answer the first part of the question, expecting China-SAE or when China-SAE is implemented, indeed, balancing the two, cost control on one hand and tech innovation on the other. They do not contradict each other. It's always the two sides of the same coin. At the end of the day, PGM, they are share in the overall cost breakdown of catalyst. PGM has a huge proportion. Therefore, for us, we still try to think about how to optimize the ratio or how to optimize the proportion. In addition to adjusting the loading, we still need to work on innovation in raw material sourcing as well as catalyst design in order to have a catalyst product that or a catalytical solutions offered to the clients with comprehensive cost advantages.
So in terms of procurement of PGM for Umicore, we don't want to use the model of locking the long-term price. Why do we avoid such a mechanism? So us versus the clients, we're back to back. That's the way we try to collaborate with each other. So think about actually back to back is the way we hedge against the volatility risk of a PGM instead of long-term locking out of a contract price. So I used to work with Johnson Matthey as well. So I've been doing that for 1 year for precious metal. So back to back, do you mean you do it in China with your clients or do it with your global clients everywhere you go? So if you try to look at the global auto sector, so I guess the way we do this collaboration in the PGM market is diversified. It's not fixating on one approach only, because for overseas countries, generally speaking, it's about the OEM is going to entrust like an auto catalyst producer or researcher to help them to do the manufacturing. So they outsource that to like vendors. But for China, we have a lot of diversification for different kinds of models. So we have all the different models. There are cases of which the customer is going to entrust, for example, the companies to do it for themselves. Sometimes, like the OEM will buy the PGM themselves and entrust us to help them to do something else. And there are still cases of which, so they entrust us to produce the catalyst for them and also deliver to the customers who entrusted it to us. So yeah, I have a lot of questions for you, but maybe this is the last question for this bit for you as well. So I guess that rental or lease is the way for a lot of companies in overseas countries. Do you think rental is being or lease is going to be used in China? Well, let me put it this way. So let's think about the platinum and the palladium. So for those two PGM metals, so I guess that people can access it from the banks, or you can, lease it from the bank. So I guess that the lease model in, for example, comparison to the buying. So I guess the leasing for some short run is going to be more flexible for you. It's going to alleviate the shortage of PGM inventory level for you. So think about rhodium. China is importing a lot of rhodium, unlike the platinum and the palladium, of which we have some recycling resources as well. For rhodium, it's a different story here in China as far as I know. There is no leasing of rhodium in China. Okay, thank you so much. So I guess that this is a very profound answer. It's expecting my expectations. So that's why for our panel session, we really hope that technology and the financial arrangement could be also shared with everyone as well. So I guess this is like the characteristics of a country becoming more and more mature. So as the moderator, I need to control the time. Let me summarize a little bit. So thank you, all the three keynote speakers, and thank you, the fourth panelist joining us for this panel as well. So you shared with us a consensus view that, so for example, for auto sector, so in the past it's all about the volume growth, but going forward is about the technology leap forward. So we understand that the policy dividend is still available. So I guess that incentives for energy vehicle is based on the emissions control, but 15th five-year plan, so the dual track is going to be a short thing. And second one is about China-SAE, next generation of emission standards, and its implications for PGM loading. All three of you mentioned that is, first of all, dual track. Dual track means that from actually so PGM's importance for the auto sector perspective. So I guess that now we are thinking about how much will be increase in what part. So or we will be like in the past China standard of which you use more loading in the beginning, while you're going to use less because you are more mature or more like familiar with the technology as well. So there are two options for you. So you produce more BEV, or you clean up your like ICE to make sure that you outperform the regulatory standards. So I guess that for example, there are two speakers mentioning that technology improvement stays way to go. So that's why China's auto sector is accelerating its iteration cycle. Second one is trying to look at national conditions when Chinese companies are trying to produce a catalyst. First of all, we should leave some margin for redundancy for the performance required by the government. So thrifting is the way in China. But of course, you cannot control the movement of the price for the metal. But you can think about leasing in overseas countries and trying to replicate that in China. So the next one is about the powertrain. So Zhiling mentioned that the BEV is moving upward. That's a given, a reversible trend. So still too premature for solid-state battery. So Zhiling, you are doing the global data focused. I have been working in the industry for 1 to 2 decades. Ever since I entered into our industry, I refer to the data published by the Globaldata. So I guess that you are more aggressive, proactive, even given the current status quo of the solid-state battery. So I guess that if you have the first installation, like a user case, the next case and several more cases going to follow suit very soon. That's the China speed. So I guess that think about like NEV is going to mean less PGM loading, but China 7 is going to use more PGM loading to stay compliant with standards is offset. So the outlook that is yet to solicit public opinions for China 7. What about the penalties? So like a monetary penalty or some other different restriction measures if you stay less compliant with the standards? Don't know yet. So once the China standard is out and available very clear, we can do some field survey to try to look at the different technology and a product strategy for companies. If you want to add more PGM load in the beginning, or if you want to add more usage of PGM in the latter part of enforcement of China 7. As President Xi Jinping mentioned that like the mountains and the clean waters are a great reserve of treasures as well. So I guess that this is the